Christmas Day, 2025, Sandringham, Norfolk. The royal family files out of St. Mary Magdalene Church into gray December air, breath visible, coats buttoned to the collar, smiles angled toward the press pack stationed behind the barriers. Princess Eugenie walks beside her cousin, Prince William. She's close enough to touch his elbow. He doesn't turn. Instead, he reaches for his scarf, adjusts it with both hands, fixes his gaze forward, and lengthens his stride until he's beside Catherine and Princess Charlotte instead. Eugenie keeps walking. The gap between them widens by about 3 paces before the cameras lose focus. Fans on social media caught the moment within the hour. Body language expert Judy James described it as an act of distraction, telling the Daily Mail that William's scarf behavior seems to be a polite tactic to manage social trickiness. Users on X pointed out he'd done the same thing to Meghan Markle at a previous Christmas walkabout and called it his go-to avoidance mechanism. James added that William has a suspicious history when it comes to using his scarf as a bit of business during what could become an awkward moment in the offing. Kensington Palace released no comment. Buckingham Palace released no comment. William said nothing, then or since. And according to multiple royal sources and commentators who have spoken through late 2025 and into 2026, the heir to the British throne hasn't needed to. Those around him reportedly understand exactly where he stands on Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. He hasn't delivered a speech or issued a public statement. But the reported picture that emerges from palace-sourced commentary, biographer assessments, and documented scheduling decisions points in one direction. The Prince of Wales has reportedly reached a private conclusion about his York cousins, and if the sourcing is accurate, it's final. The question is, why so many signs now point in the same direction? And what pushed a man known for guardedness and discipline to a position this stark? April 29, 2011, Westminster Abbey. The nave is packed with 1,900 guests for the wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie arrive together. Beatrice wears a Philip Tracy fascinator, a pale pink pretzel of ribbon perched above her forehead, so visually arresting that it commandeers the next morning's papers across 3 continents. Eugenie's teal hat, less extreme, still draws comment. Photographers outside the Abbey fire hundreds of frames as the sisters climb the steps and disappear inside. Hello later described the pair as having supported William and Kate at the royal wedding. People magazine reported Beatrice eventually auctioned the fascinator for $130,000, donating the proceeds to charity. Vogue Australia noted that the sisters later opened up about crying over the public backlash the hats provoked, a detail that, whatever else it reveals, shows they cared about how they were perceived within the family picture. That wedding remains the clearest documented moment of ordinary family participation between the Wales and York branches. Beatrice and Eugenie were present. They were visible. They took their abbey seats alongside the wider family and fulfilled their ceremonial role. But presence at a family wedding doesn't prove private closeness. The evidence available suggests the warmth between these cousins was already thinner than it appeared on the guest list seating plan. Royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, quoted in Reality Tea and Yahoo-style pickup reporting in February 2026, was blunt. Prince William and Kate Middleton aren't close to Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. He added that the distance goes way back. Fitzwilliams traced one early thread to a falling out between William and Dave Clark, Beatrice's boyfriend of roughly a decade. According to his account, William introduced the pair, but later turned against Clark, calling him unreliable. Clark's absence from the 2011 wedding was cited as an early marker of friction. Whether that dispute bled into William's relationship with Beatrice directly is unconfirmed. The sourcing on the Clark story is thin and hasn't been corroborated beyond Fitzwilliams's commentary. But as a possible origin point, it tracks with the broader pattern that emerged later. Personal distance that existed long before the crises of 2025 and 2026 made it institutional. Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was once considered Queen Elizabeth's favorite son. He was sixth in line to the throne at Eugenie's birth in 1990. He moved through the royal calendar with the entitlement of a man who described himself, according to biographer Andrew Lowney, as a prince first, a naval officer second, and a husband third. By 2025, the BBC was running headlines calling him Prince William's Problem 2, and framing his continued existence within the royal family as a structural threat to William's eventual reign. The Guardian reported that William still considers his uncle a threat and a reputational risk to the monarchy. Fox News cited an authorial claim that William had privately called Andrew an ignoramus long before King Charles finally acted. Lowney, who wrote, entitled, The Rise and Fall of the House of York, put it more directly in an interview with Page 6. He's worried about what's going to happen, Lowney said of Andrew. He's going to be no longer protected. William is going to deal with him. In a separate interview with LBC, Lowney said William wanted Andrew removed from the family completely. He predicted Andrew would go kicking and screaming, demanding a pretty big house, extensive staff, a gardener, a driver, a housekeeper, and a cook. Andrew denied wrongdoing. He always has. But the machinery of royal protection around him had already been dismantled piece by piece. And Beatrice and Eugenie, his daughters, his dependents, his reputational neighbors, were caught in the collapse. The Epstein files changed the calculus for the York sisters. Previous reporting had treated Beatrice, 37, and Eugenie, 35, as collateral damage, the innocent daughters of a disgraced father, unlucky in parentage but personally blameless. The documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice complicated that framing in specific, documented ways. Reported Epstein file summaries say Beatrice and Eugenie visited Epstein in Florida with Sarah Ferguson after his 2009 prison release. Fitzwilliams was pointed about it, arguing that the visit looked deeply inappropriate. The Daily Mail later found a 2015 email from Epstein boasting to a friend that Beatrice liked him. Epstein had attended Beatrice's lavish Victorian-themed 18th birthday masked ball at Royal Lodge back in 2006, alongside Ghislaine Maxwell and Harvey Weinstein. A guest list that reads differently in retrospect than it did at the time. More damaging still was the revelation that Beatrice had helped advise her mother on media strategy around Epstein. After Ferguson told The Standard in 2011 that she abhors pedophilia and called her decision to accept £15,000 from Epstein a gigantic error of judgment, the released emails showed a follow-up. Beatrice was present when Ferguson called a journalist to argue it was wrong to call Epstein a sex offender because he had done his penance. Ferguson wrote in an email among the 3 million documents released by the DOJ that Beatrice and I had a discussion, and we agreed it was important to brief the press that Epstein had already served his time. Beatrice also played a documented role in Andrew's catastrophic 2019 Newsnight interview. A BBC producer revealed that she attended a pre-production meeting with producer Sam McAllister, arriving with a notebook and pen. Andrew famously used Beatrice as his alibi during the broadcast, claiming he'd been collecting her from a party at Pizza Express in Woking on the night he allegedly had sex with Virginia Giuffre. Fitzwilliams described Beatrice's involvement in facilitating the Newsnight interview as absolutely cataclysmic for any hopes of her having official royal duties when William becomes king. None of this means Beatrice or Eugenie did anything illegal. Sources close to the sisters told the Daily Mail they were appalled and embarrassed. "They are aghast at what they have read," a source said. "They are mortified by the emails their mother has sent to Epstein. It's so embarrassing for them." Another source said, "We don't believe the girls were told much about what has just emerged, and they will simply be aghast at just how close their parents were to this appalling man." But for a future king reportedly focused on reputational risk management, the distinction between legal innocence and institutional liability evidently wasn't enough. Eugenie carried a separate complication, one that had nothing to do with Epstein. Multiple outlets reported she maintained a notably close friendship with Prince Harry. Fitzwilliams acknowledged this explicitly, noting Eugenie once seemed useful for reconciliation between the brothers. "Now," he said, "that is highly unlikely." The Daily Mail reported that Eugenie's closeness to the Sussexes had left Catherine cautious since Megxit. One report claimed Harry and Meghan had urged Eugenie to spend more time in the United States and offered to find her a role, either with the Invictus Games or Meghan's As Ever brand. "Harry and Meghan have both said they could absolutely make a place for her," a source told the outlet. For William, who has remained estranged from his younger brother since Harry's departure from working royal life in 2020, and the allegations he subsequently made against the family. A cousin maintaining a bridge to the Sussexes reportedly sat uncomfortably. The sourcing on this strand is thinner than the Andrew material. It relies on lower-tier outlets and unnamed insiders, but it appears in enough separate reports to suggest the connection registered inside Kensington Palace, even if its weight relative to the Epstein fallout remains unclear. The reported private verdict from William, as described by royal sources across the Daily Mail, AOL, OK Magazine, and The Express through early 2026, is remarkably consistent in tone, even when the specific language varies. A royal source told AOL in March 2026 that the heir thinks they should be kept at arm's length. The same article described William as taking a hard line on Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. The Express reported William was prepared to take a hard line if necessary against the York sisters. OK Magazine published a more detailed account from a source described as familiar with internal discussions. The insider's language was specific. William used to see Beatrice and Eugenie as possible allies in the future, dependable relatives who could quietly support the monarchy if needed, they said. But the atmosphere has changed dramatically, and William really has done a startling U-turn. After everything that has happened around Beatrice and Eugenie's parents, he is far more cautious about who represents the royal family publicly. The same source continued, William has seen firsthand how quickly scandals can spiral and dominate the narrative around the monarchy. Because of that, he is determined that when he eventually becomes king, his reign won't begin under the cloud of lingering controversies linked to other members of the family. As a result, William has become extremely alert to anything that could even hint at reputational risk. Even distant associations with ongoing scandals now raise serious questions in his mind about whether someone should be placed in a visible role representing the crown. Another OK insider added, "In the past, there was a belief that Beatrice and Eugenie might step forward as senior working royals when William becomes king. Now, that is far less certain. William's mindset has changed. His focus is on protecting the stability of the monarchy above all else, and that means avoiding anything that could reopen old controversies or create new ones." Fitzwilliams went further in the Daily Mail. "William and Kate don't appear to have close ties with the sisters and would probably not miss them," he said. "It may fall to William to make a decision on the future of Beatrice and Eugenie. Neither are reportedly particularly close to him or to Kate." The reported distancing didn't stay in the realm of insider quotes and commentary. It crystallized in a specific, documented decision. In late February 2026, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie were reportedly told they wouldn't be welcome at Royal Ascot. The story broke across multiple outlets simultaneously. GB News reported the sisters had been informed they won't be welcome to join senior royals at the June event. The Daily Record said they were reportedly banned from attending Royal Ascot, an unexpected move. New Idea ran the headline, Prince William bans Beatrice and Eugenie from royal events, and insiders say their titles will be taken next. The Daily Mail described the exclusion as part of a wider decision to exclude the princesses from all public-facing events for the foreseeable future, following what it called high-level palace meetings about the role the pair should play. A source gave the Mail on Sunday a ground-level account. I've spoken to my friend who works at Ascot, and they said the girls have been told they can't be there this year, the source said. Beatrice has taken it the hardest. She's been completely blindsided by all of this. The ban carried logistical force that went beyond symbolism. Royal Ascot's carriage procession, a ceremonial tradition since 1825, requires participants to stay at Windsor Castle the night before and dine with the family. The source explained, that's another reason why it's out of the question that the girls will be able to go, unless they are just there as members of the royal enclosure. The distinction matters. Ordinary enclosure attendance is anonymous, aristocratic background noise. The carriage procession is visible, televised, and photographed from every angle. Being cut from it means being cut from the image. The Daily Mail also reported that William had advised other members of the royal family to avoid appearing in photographs alongside Beatrice and Eugenie for the rest of the year. A claim that, if accurate, extended the exclusion from one event to an entire calendar of royal visibility. Biographer Andrew Lowney, speaking on a joint podcast with journalist James Fairclough, read the Ascot decision as deliberate messaging. The line that they're pushing is that they were never going to go to Ascot in the first place, and it does seem odd to be so public about this distancing, he said. They could have just quietly said to them, listen, please don't turn up. So I think it's a very clear indication that the royal family either knows something or suspect something, and they therefore feel the need to distance themselves from the daughters. Lowney added, now this could be pressure from William. Charles may be changing his mind. He has been, of course, very sympathetic to them over the last few months. His overall assessment was blunt. William, I think, is calling more of the shots now. In the wake of the Ascot exclusion, Eugenie stepped down from her patronage at Anti-Slavery International, the charity she had supported since 2019. Beyond Ascot, the texture of family interaction reportedly changed in ways that were harder to photograph, but just as telling. A Daily Mail report from early March 2026 claimed William was particularly annoyed by the sisters' independent business projects in the Middle East. A source cited a tea party hosted by Beatrice in Saudi Arabia in November 2025, saying the timing angered William, who had just returned from his own diplomatic trip to Riyadh. The insider said the episode showed total lack of self-awareness and that the sisters, going off-piste with their own projects, could muddy the waters for the monarchy's own relationship building in the region. The same report said the sisters declined a palace ethics check on their investments. A family source told the Daily Mail that the girls have tried to build some bridges, but that William had not reciprocated as hoped. The cousins reportedly met at 2 Christmas lunches in December 2025. Both were described as strained affairs. The source said, William and Kate were apparently polite but standoffish on both occasions. Catherine's position in this story is less sharply defined than William's, but the reporting consistently places her on the same side of the divide. The Daily Mail reported she has always been cautious about Andrew's daughters, and described his wife's frosty relationship with them. Fitzwilliam said it was unsurprising that Catherine has been cautious in her relations with them. At Royal Ascot in 2023, Catherine and Beatrice shared a carriage with their respective husbands, Prince William and Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi. Body language expert Judy James, analyzing footage for the Daily Mail, described the two women sitting locked in poses of mutual tension, with both pairs of hands clasped tightly in their laps and their torsos hunched forward. She noted no exchange of glances and said, "The two women appear to ignore each other in the moment." When they exited the carriage, James observed Catherine suddenly swing back to look at Beatrice in a gesture that suggests an afterthought, while Beatrice looks down and strides out as though keen to walk ahead of Kate. One source offered a sharply different account. Woman in Home quoted a source saying, "William and Catherine have been very supportive. The princess has been in regular contact with Beatrice and Eugenie just to check in and make sure they're all right." The same outlet reported a united royal front at Carol concert alongside William and Kate, as late as December 2025. The contradiction suggests either that the reality is more complex than any single source captures, or that palace messaging was deliberately varied depending on the audience. But the weight of the reporting, the Ascot ban, the photo restriction, the strained lunches, the arm's-length phrasing from multiple insiders, tilts heavily toward distance rather than support. William reportedly wasn't acting from wounded feeling alone. The pattern described by those close to the situation is institutional, not personal. Loney told News Nation that William would move towards a more European style of monarchy, smaller, tighter, with fewer relatives in visible roles. The BBC framed Andrew as a threat to William's future reign in structural terms. Royal expert Hilary Fordwich told Fox News Digital that William is the hardliner on reputational risk within the family. She said he views silence as both damning and dangerous for the monarchy. Broadcasting journalist Helena Chard, also speaking to Fox News, said William was grappling with what she called his worst nightmare: public mistrust in the monarchy, fueled by the Andrew scandal. If it were up to Prince William, he would have dealt with the Andrew fallout a long time ago, Chard said. He is furious with the negative impact on the royal family's standing due to his Uncle Andrew's despicable behavior. He has no allegiance to his uncle. And yet the picture isn't entirely one-directional. At least two credible counter-voices complicate the freeze-out narrative. Royal biographer Robert Jobson, quoted by the Royal Observer, offered a direct rebuttal. William's position is direct. Beatrice and Eugenie must not be punished for their father's alleged sins. If Jobson's sourcing is accurate, William draws a line between Andrew's toxicity and the sisters' personal standing, even if the institutional consequences for all three look similar from the outside. Royal expert Jenny Bond, speaking to the Mirror in December 2025, said William has particular sympathy for his cousins. She explained his empathy stems from having had to endure endless publicity about his parents as he was growing up. Of course, the headlines then were for very different reasons: the disintegration of his parents' marriage. But it was still traumatic for a young boy. You have to feel for these young women. Bond noted that Beatrice and Eugenie haven't been accused of doing anything wrong and have remained close to the rest of the royal family, despite their parents being humiliated and publicly criticized over many years. King Charles, she said, seems keen to protect them. AOL ran a separate article in December 2025, stating that William has a soft spot for his cousins. These two framings, sympathy and strategic exile, aren't necessarily contradictory. What the reporting suggests is a man who may care about his cousins on a personal level, while simultaneously concluding they can't be part of his public institution going forward. The palace has always operated in precisely that gap: private feeling in one room, scheduling decisions in another. Journalist Emily Maitlis, who conducted Andrew's 2019 Newsnight interview, suggested on her News Agents podcast that William had warned the sisters their own positions could be revisited if Andrew didn't leave Royal Lodge. The reported leverage, titles in exchange for cooperation, is unverified, but it tracks with the broader institutional pressure that Lowney and others have described as William's operating style. The same deliberate management of proximity reportedly extends to the York sisters. At the Christmas church service, William and Catherine were careful to avoid being photographed walking alongside Beatrice and Eugenie, per the Daily Mail. The Christmas lunches were strained. The Ascot ban was formalized and made public. The photograph restriction was communicated. Beatrice and Eugenie reportedly feel trapped by forces they didn't set in motion. One source told Radar Online, "Beatrice and Eugenie feel like they are living in horrific limbo. They have spent years carefully building respectable private lives, yet the fallout from their parents' controversies keeps circling back to them." Another source added, "There is a real concern that Prince William wants their heads on the chopping block as part of a harder line on which royals should remain publicly associated with the institution." The language is tabloid sharp, but it captures a reported emotional reality. The sisters believe the ground beneath them is moving. Ferguson reportedly makes things harder. Sources claim she expects her daughters to advocate for her return to royal social circles. Sarah appears convinced that her daughters represent a pathway back into the social world she once moved in so comfortably, one insider said. William reportedly told those around him that Ferguson is persona non grata. An in-touch source claimed he doesn't want to ever see her face again. Eugenie, meanwhile, spends increasing time in Portugal, where her husband Jack Brooksbank works for businessman Michael Meldman. She and Brooksbank had lived at Frogmore Cottage, Harry and Meghan's former Windsor residence, from November 2020 to May 2022 before relocating. Beatrice's new Cotswolds home, shared with husband Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, is physically distant from the usual royal circuits. Whether that distance is voluntary retreat or prudent self-removal, it moves the sisters further from the center of gravity. A royal insider quoted in the Daily Mail offered a characterization of the sisters' upbringing that cuts through the sympathy. "They were never going to be working royals, but have benefited from their family connection," the source said. Andrew introduced them to many of his business contacts and foreign royals. They and Fergie have become friends with some shady people. The insider added, "Beatrice and Eugenie grew up in this rarefied world in which there was always someone to do everything for you." That was illustrated when Beatrice had her BMW stolen in 2009 after leaving it unlocked with the car keys in the ignition. I think she was used to her police protection officer looking after such things. Because William has said nothing publicly, the entire case for his reported private conclusion rests on documented exclusions, scheduling patterns, and palace-sourced commentary with mixed reliability. No direct on-record quote from William about Beatrice or Eugenie exists in any public source. The strongest outlets in the reporting, the BBC, The Guardian, the Daily Mail with its known palace access, and named biographers like Lowney and Jobson, carry more weight than the entertainment verticals and anonymous source tabloid pickups that tend to recycle a handful of original reports. But even the strongest claims are mediated through interpreters, not delivered by the subject himself. The visible evidence, though, aligns with the insider accounts in a pattern that is hard to dismiss. The Ascot ban happened and was confirmed across multiple outlets. The photo restriction was separately reported. The Christmas body language was captured on video. Eugenie left her anti-slavery international patronage. The OK magazine source's detailed account of William's startling U-turn didn't emerge in isolation. It followed months of converging reports from separate sourcing. Fitzwilliams summed up what he said was likely coming. "William will undoubtedly be planning the future," he told the Daily Mail. He added that the prince is unlikely to include Beatrice and Eugenie in any official capacity. Lowney put the strategic vision in broader terms. He will move towards a more European style of monarchy. Fewer cousins at the table, fewer carriages in the procession, fewer names on the balcony at Buckingham Palace when the crowds below are watching. William hasn't needed a public statement to communicate his reported position. Scheduling communicates. Seating arrangements communicate. The photographs that don't get taken communicate. A blog tracking royal protocol noted that palace statements get parsed line by line, and silence gets treated as a signal. Within that system, the pattern of 2025 and 2026, the avoidance, the exclusions, the refusal to reciprocate bridge building, the quiet management of who stands where, reads as a sustained and deliberate message. If the reporting is accurate, and the volume, consistency, and convergence of it suggests it reflects something real, even if the exact private wording remains unknowable, then Beatrice and Eugenie aren't facing a temporary chill. They're facing a quiet, institutional verdict from the man who will one day shape what the monarchy looks like, and who gets to be part of it. He hasn't said the words. He may never say them. But the carriage isn't coming for them this June, and for now, that absence is being read, inside the palace and outside it, as the clearest message William has sent. Subscribe for more stories like this.